Okay, we're on YouTube now, so that's great. Um, you guys can, why don't Juliana and Jamie stay up visually while I'm talking to people because people are more interested in you than me. All right, so hang in there with us. Hi, everybody. My name is Elizabeth Luciano. I'm an associate professor at Bucks County Community College and the director of the short fiction contests. Thanks for joining us today. In normal days, we would be in Tyler Hall in a beautiful old-fashioned dining room, but instead we are on Zoom, which I'm very grateful for. And I'm also grateful for the writing of our young people. We had more than 30 entries this year, so that was terrific. Some of them were pretty serious, and a lot of them were dealing with some of the things that are going on in the world right now. So I'm grateful to all the people who entered the contest and who were doing some really important, robust thinking. So today we are going to celebrate our winners, Lauren Pierce, Jamie Hallman, and Juliana Taggart. They're the winners of this spring's short fiction contest for high school students. Again, we had more than 30 entries, so you all should feel very, very proud. This is an accomplishment. The winners did get cash prizes. They'll be getting certificates as soon as I can get to campus to print out those certificates. So be patient, those will be coming to you. This is a little bit like the Oscars. I need to thank a few people before we start. First, the Department of Language and Literature for administrative and financial assistance. This is not something that I could do all by myself, and there are a lot of fingers in the pot. I also want to thank Damon of Media Services, who's sitting in with us and who's making this work. Thank you, Damon. And also the high school English teachers from throughout Bucks County who let their students know about this project and who encouraged them to send work in. Obviously, you're doing something really right because we're getting some terrific work from high school students these days. So with the thank yous aside, I'll tell you the order of business today. First, I'll introduce Juliana and tell you what our final judge, Dr. Stephen DoCarmo, had to say about her story. And she'll read her story for us. And then we'll go through the same process for Jamie. Our first place winner, Lauren, doesn't appear to be with us right now. But if she makes her way into the chat, we'll roll with it and have her read as well. I do ask that as each writer is reading her essay, the others of us will mute our mics and will close down our videos so that we won't be distracting to the reader. Okay, so with all that aside, I would like to introduce Juliana Taggart, a 17-year-old junior at Pennsbury High School and a resident of Levittown. She placed third for her story, The Monsters Within. Responding to her story, the judge noted, a wildly imaginative sci-fi romp, symbolically representing to readers a whole host of torn from the headlines contemporary issues: overpopulation, the robot labor revolution, environmental destruction, and the loss of the family as a stabilizing social unit. It's powerful and unafraid of the dark, as its closing lines forcefully demonstrate. Ladies and gentlemen, Juliana Taggart.
Overpopulation, the singular reason that I will never get the chance to meet my parents. The rule was made over 20 years before I was born, the rule that destroyed the lives of thousands of kids, the rule saying that adults weren't allowed to have babies anymore. That didn't stop people from having them though, so they started to collect us. The second we left our mother's wombs, they would come and sweep us off to laboratories so that scientists could test their experiments on us. We were disposable. In some laboratories, They would try to create everlasting life so that the adults wouldn't die. Some tested new poisons on those poor kids, while others tried to make weapons for the military. I was a weapon. I didn't know what to make about the lab that I was in or really what was going on. All I knew was that I had a number on my wrist just like everyone else. Mine was 163, and that I got to live until I was 18. After a kid turned 18, they disappeared, being labeled a failed experiment. I didn't know how they failed. All I knew is that they were never a success. Even though kids were being taken, parents still kept having kids. So once all the 18-year-olds died, they would just be replaced with newborns who would be raised by the Sally machines. They were basically our moms, or so to say. They fed and dressed us every day. No one tried to make friends here. It was too upsetting when they left. Since we didn't make friends, the only form of entertainment was a small TV that only played shows about different types of animals. Sally always told us that it was important for us to know about animals, but I never knew why. I was scared. Tomorrow was my 18th birthday. I always knew it would come. I just never realized it would come this quickly. Someone came and woke me up at midnight. I wasn't ready. I really wasn't ready for this. I was taken into this large, all-white room with this old man standing in the middle of it. I'd never actually seen an adult before. The only adult figure in my life had been Sally. When I finally got to the man, he was looking at this tiny clock on his wrist. It looked like he was waiting for something. All of a sudden, my head started to hurt like crazy. I instantly fell to the ground and started screaming. Everything hurt. Even my hair hurt. I didn't know that that was even possible. It went on for what felt like hours. I knew this was my end. It had to be. Suddenly, my vision cleared. It felt like water running down my body, taking all the pain I had with it. I slowly looked up, and everything was taller than clearer. I was so confused about what was happening to me. I spotted the man again, and this time he was looking right back at me with a huge smile on his face. I was a little creeped out by it. Finally, he suddenly yelled so loud that it hurt my ears. He started to jump around. It kind of looked like he was celebrating. It finally worked. The experiment finally actually worked. He sounded so excited. I think it was a success. Maybe I wasn't going to die today. I tried to say something to him, to ask about what was excited about, but all that came out was a roar. I'm so confused. Was that me? He looked back at me again. I think I have to explain what's going on now. I tried to speak, but only a roar came out again. Started to get upset, and a whimpering sound started. I think it was coming from me, though. Okay, so where to start? Well, when you first got here, I looked through your genes and tried to see which animal fits you best. I found that animal to be a jaguar for you. It's different for everyone, though. Then I took the jaguar's gene and I mixed them with yours, as well as some other chemicals to make it so that you could shift. Now, how this works is that your genes grow in your body until you're 18 years old. And that is when the animal genes are supposed to combine with your genes, allowing you to change back and forth into animal form and your human form. For most kids, on their 18th birthday, their bodies reject the animal genes, causing them to shift to kill them. But finally, it worked. It actually worked, and you, my dear, are the proof of that. Understand? Oh my God, this guy was crazy or something. I was a jaguar? That made no sense. Okay, so to change back into human, just think of yourself as a human. Come on, give it a shot. Well, if I must, I guess. I pictured my long brown hair and blue eyes, and suddenly I felt a rush of cold water go over me again. When I opened my eyes, everything was smaller again. Excuse me, sir, but is this actually real? Am I not gonna die today? I decided to ask while looking up at the man right in front of me. No, dearie, you aren't. But it is your last day in this lab. Tonight you leave for your new home, the military base. All I could do was stare at the man, not knowing what to even think anymore. Right after that, I was quickly rushed into a private bedroom by Sally. She then cleaned me and shoved me into a dress, which is weird because only toddlers wore dresses. That night, these big, scary men showed up in my room saying that it was time to leave. I got into this weird box thing with wheels that they called a car. It was in this so-called car for a few hours, just sitting silently, not really knowing what to say. The car finally stopped at this huge, dark building that looked scary with what looked like obstacle courses or surrounding it. The door of the car opened and I was ripped through the opening, dragged to the building. The building was filled with big, scary adults all dressed in green. I was thrown into this small room. They told me to sleep and that tomorrow I would start training. I didn't know what I was training for. I was so scared and nervous and confused and decided to just try to sleep, hoping that it would take me away from here, maybe to my family, happy and in paradise. The next morning, the scary men came back and threw this all black outfit at me. It was hard to move in, and the tight top and long pants. I later found out the weird material was called leather. I would have to wear it every day for the next few years. I was introduced to training where I learned to be fit, to fight people twice my size, and to kill people in animal form or with a variety of weapons. I never actually killed in training, but I knew if I had to, I'd be able to. The others came gradually throughout the years. It's been over 10 years now, and there was a total of 5 of us. The military decided to name us because they got tired of having to use our numbers. There was Benjamin, who we called Ben, who came a year after me. He always felt like an older protective brother to me, even though I was older than him. Then there was Ethan, who came 2 years after Ben. He was the most observant out of all of us and always kept a watchful eye on everything. 3 years after him was Kyle. He was a huge teddy bear, always there for when you just needed a hug or a hand to hold. Finally, a few months after Kyle was Rosaline. She was the sweetest person you could ever meet. I don't think there was ever a mean bone in her body. There hadn't been another since. That was 4 years ago. Training was brutal, but only bearable because I now had others with me who ended up becoming my family. I loved them all. They were all so unique and special, especially with their animals. Ben was a bear, Ethan an eagle, Kyle a coyote, and Rosaline, she was a lion. The more I trained, the deadlier I got, and the more the military started to fear not only me, but all of us. We had started to be able to see what we were stronger and better than them, and if we wanted to, we could easily take them out and be feared by them, but we didn't want that. We didn't want to be feared. We just wanted to live. We wanted to be free, but we didn't want to hurt anyone, and that was our biggest flaw. It was after one of our hardest training days that it happened. I had just got back to my room after bidding everyone good night when the general came into my room. This wasn't the first time I'd met him. He'd actually shown up quite a lot around me to see how I was progressing. But by the look on his face, I could tell this time was different than the rest. He was as serious as he always was, but I could smell a hint of fear on him, which was new because he was the only adult that never feared us. Sit down, we need to talk. His voice was deep, and it felt like he was forcing it that deep to try and intimidate me, which hadn't worked since I was 20. I didn't feel like bringing it up by questioning him, so I just went over to my bed and sat down, waiting for him to continue. Your training is done. It's time for you to get the others and join the fight that you were made for. I wasn't sure what fight he was talking about, but I knew it wouldn't be good. What fight are we supposed to join, sir? I tried to be as respectful as possible, but it's hard when you don't actually respect a person to fake it like you do. About time you heard about this. There's a small island that is taking couples in and letting them have babies and keep them. Have a strong defense on their side, so we haven't been able to break them, which is why you guys were made, so that you could go there and slaughter them all. I knew if I said anything against him, it would be a bloodbath on the base, so I nodded my head and waited for him to leave my room. Once he did, I knew I had to get right to making a plan on how I was going to be able to escape with the others. I knew it was risky, but all we wanted was to be free, And being forced to mortar families was crossing the line. Asking us to murder anyone was crossing the line. Killing should only be done out of protection, and it was a last resort. I got the plan together as quickly as I could. I knew the guards shifted at midnight, so that was when I would grab the others and get them as far away from the base as possible. Once I saw the guards start to leave, I started my plan. Thankfully, all the others' rooms were in the same hallway as mine. I started knocking on all of them to wake up. We had to be quick. Once I saw them start to come out, I spoke as quickly as I could. We have to leave right now. They want us to kill innocent families just because they had kids. This is our only chance to leave. We would have to leave tomorrow for battle if we don't run right now. I could tell they were all in shock as they all just nodded their head and stared at me. I instantly shifted into my white Jaguar, knowing they would get the hint and shift too. After I saw that they were all ready, we ran. We ran with all of our strength, hoping to get out of there without any problem. Of course, that didn't happen. When we got around the last corner, there was 50 guards getting ready to walk to their post. They looked at us, and I knew we were going to have to fight. Not wanting to give them a head start, I attacked first with the intent to hurt, not to kill. As I started taking out guards, I saw the others join me. It wasn't an easy fight. We were badly hurt, but scratched up here and there. But we had finally done it. We'd finally escaped. We'd been running for a few days, only to stop when we absolutely had to. Finally, we reached a forest that looked like it had never been touched by the human hand, and I knew this was our only chance to live free lives. We picked a nice small opening surrounded by tall trees so that we wouldn't be easily seen, and we started building. We built ourselves a nice small cabin that would be perfect for our family. We finally got to settle down. Ben became our spring and summer hunter. He would go out to the stream each morning and catch us some fish. Kyle, Rosaline, and I would go out and hunt together in the fall so that we could stock up for the brutal winters we had. Ethan was our lookout. He would scout every day to make sure that no harm came to our little family. It was amazing. We were finally free. We settled down and became a true family. We spent 10 years out in that cabin. After everything we went through, from the day we were born to the day we escaped, didn't matter anymore. It was just us as a family now. We even had a little baby running around. Rosaline and Kyle apparently knew each other in the lab and grew up loving each other, but couldn't be together because of everything that was happening and the fear of losing each other. Once we settled down, they could finally be a couple they always wanted to be, which resulted in a little 2-year-old running around. Everything was absolutely perfect. I had hoped that this is what the rest of our lives would look like. Sadly, that didn't happen. It was the middle of summer. We were all sitting by the fire watching little Lily run and chasing the fireflies. Ethan was out scouting. He had left an hour ago. He should be returning any minute now, but he never did return. An hour later was when they showed up. They came with these whips that I'd never seen before. There were hundreds more than we had ever seen before. It was the military. They'd found us. We all shifted as quickly as we could. We got Lily in the house, hoping that she would be safe. We fought with all we had. Kyle was the first to get trapped by the whip thing they had. Apparently, it was made to be able to wrap around our necks and latch on with a strong grip that none of us would be able to get out of. Next was Rosaline. She tried to help Kyle and turned her back for a second. She had no chance. Ben was next. He went with a real fight. But after they got 4 of those things around him, he couldn't fight anymore. I tried to save them, but I couldn't. One moment I was beating them, and the next I had multiple whips around me, holding me down. When they wrapped around me, it felt like I was getting a million bee stings at once. It was worse than shifting for the first time. I saw tears in all my family's eye. We knew this would be our end. Then we saw a few of them pulling something forward. It was Ethan. He didn't look too good, but I guess none of us really did. Then the general showed up with a knife. You guys have lived for too long. You're too dangerous. You should have seen it when you first started training. I'm sorry we didn't put you out of your suffering any sooner, but it's okay. It's over now. You guys are just a failed experiment that turned into monsters. But you won't have to be monsters any longer. Don't worry. I knew what he meant by that, but I didn't want to accept it yet. I wanted it to just be with my family for those last few moments. One by one, my family fell. First was Rosaline. She was the youngest and sweetest of us, and she would always be the kind lion, even as her body hit the floor, her head separated from her body. Then was Kyle, who had given up his fight and just wanted to be with his love. He didn't even try to think of living without her. Tears rushed down my face as I realized we weren't able to give Lily what we didn't have. She was orphaned now with no parents and soon no family either. I just hoped she wouldn't get caught and she would be able to get the chance to grow old and maybe one day find her own family like I did. Next was Ethan. He was always protecting us as best as he could, even though he wasn't the strongest or biggest. He was always our eye in the sky. He was given the same death as the others, decapitation. Then Ben fell. I had known him the longest, and he was always there for me. He was my brother through all this, but I would be seeing him soon. Finally, the general got to me, wiping my family's blood from his blade. He leaned down and whispered in my ear, "This is always how it was supposed to end. You shouldn't have even made it past the shift, but you were too strong-willed. I guess you got one good thing from me at least, daughter." I felt a sharp pain across my neck, and then absolutely nothing.
Thank you very much, Juliana. That was beautiful. It was really fun for me to hear you read the story because I've had the pleasure of reading the story silently before, and hearing your intonations with it, and your emphasis was really lovely. I was really struck by how well you write a sense of crisis, which we're all kind of dealing with right now, and also the desire for community and desire for freedom. So I think you're hitting on a lot of things that we're all thinking about right now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for reading. Next, we are going to hear from our second place winner, Jamie Hallman. Jamie is a Coopersburg resident who is a senior at Palisades High School. She won for her story Reset. Commenting on her story, the judge said, "A bold and trippy bit of storytelling cut from Twilight Zone and Black Mirror cloth. Reset does what great sci-fi always does. It illuminates present day social issues and demands that its audience confront its own fears and anxieties about those issues. Its depictions of US schools are especially well employed towards those ends, and there's some terrific and imaginative descriptive writing too." So I am going to mute myself and my video and hand the screen over to Jamie. Thank you, Jamie.
Heaven, that's what this place is. Ashley really couldn't imagine a better world to live in. Everything was perfect. The sun's brilliant golden rays were powering the entire world. The vibrant red robins were always chirping their little songs of joy. A slight breeze rustled the vast amount of trees. The water was always pristine, clear, and refreshing. Walking down the street, Ashley could see people at every house. Some were doing yard work, some were sitting on their porch reading, others were speaking to their neighbors outside. Ashley lived in the suburbs, so the houses were tightly packed together, not that big, and didn't have a lot of privacy. Even though all of this was a factor, on every person's face was a smile that was brighter than the last. Everybody was happy. How could you not be when you lived in the perfect world? The good energy in the air was palpable, and it shocked Ashley down to the core. Upon seeing her school, Ashley felt the smile on her face grow even wider. It wasn't like the dark years. The kids now all loved school. There really was no nerves, anxiety, or dread for the kids who were still in any type of school. In fact, Ashley never even heard a bad whisper about it. Ashley! Ashley stopped and turned around to see her best friend Erica running up to her. How are you doing this fine morning? Erica's voice was chipper, as always, complete with Erica's signature show-stopping smile. Amazing, Ashley exclaimed with her own cheerful voice. How are you? Just as great, Erica answered. Val and I are working on this history project after school. You can come hang out with us if you want. History? Ashley questioned as she tilted her head. You have history? Erica nodded. It's a project about the Dark Years, where this bomb killed the only elephant in Berlin. Erica rolled her eyes, then leaned in. Val picked it. Ashley pursed her lips as her eyebrows together. When was the last time I had a history class? She couldn't remember. I don't have a history class. Erica shrugged her shoulders. I'm sure it doesn't matter. Ashley wanted to shrug her shoulders and forget about it as well, but as much as she wanted to, it became glaringly obvious that it did matter. As they walked through the colorfully decorated halls, Ashley noticed that every person they passed in the hallway had a history textbook, and history classes were packed full of students. Seeing this, Ashley couldn't help but to wonder why. So, I'll see you after school? Erica asked, backing up towards the classroom. Yeah, see you. Ashley waved before she walked into her English classroom and sat down. A shiver traveled down Ashley's spine. With a quick glance around, it seemed history textbooks that were in kids' hands laying on the desks or visible in backpacks burned brighter in their gaze. Ashley avoided looking at them as an uneasy feeling coiled its way around her stomach like a corset. It was being pulled tighter and tighter until Ashley felt like she couldn't breathe. Black spots dotted her vision. Everything around her blurred together, and Ashley felt carsick. Okay, class. The corset broke around Ashley as she now focused all of her attention on the teacher. Today you will be reading an article on the Odyssey program. The Odyssey program, the program that changed the entire world. It was released by the CDC when a dangerous virus worked its way through every country. It was their antidote in simpler terms. They described it as a way to end the world's pain and preserve human life. It worked. It saved the human race from the virus and from the dark years. After the launch of the program, nobody had to worry about poverty, racism, sexism, or anything else that plagued the human race. Everybody was thankful, and nobody questioned it. Normally, mention of the Odyssey program would bring Ashley comfort, but as she glanced around the classroom at everyone's wide-toothed grins and wide, blank eyes, another shiver made her body twinge. 10 million cockroaches crawled their way through her bloodstream, and as they stepped, their pinchers pricked and prodded, making her hair stand up. It's okay, Ashley, the Odyssey program. The Odyssey program is for the best, she recited to herself as she reached into her warm backpack and took out her school laptop. Just ignore it. All she had to do was get through this class. Ashley read the article, then went through the pictures that were placed in a slideshow at the bottom. She couldn't tear her eyes away. The riots, the people screaming, the lifeless bodies, the fires. Ashley tasted bile in the back of her throat. Ashley slammed her laptop shut. She kept her eyes on the floor and tapped the desk. Maybe if she just took a time out, it would be okay. But Ashley wasn't given the luxury. She saw her teacher's black heels approaching her desk, so Ashley glanced up. A strangled gasp left her throat. Ashley was sure her heart was loud enough for everyone to hear. Her teacher's skin was gray, leathery, and moist with sweat. Her eyes were swollen, and her hair was wiry and streaked against her face. The next moment, her English teacher was back to normal, standing with a confused gaze and concerned, drawn-in eyebrows in front of her. Obviously, she had said something, but Ashley didn't hear. Sorry, Ashley nodded as she put on a fake smile. I'm okay. Her teacher reached out toward her, still concerned, about to say something else, but Ashley flinched away. I'm okay, but thank you. Ashley reassured her, so her teacher walked away. I'm not okay. What was that? What the hell did I just see? Ashley was trying to stay calm, but in her mind she was slowly losing it. Her leg bounced up and down. Her hand trembled in her lap. She was dead, sick. Then she was fine. Am I going crazy? Ashley gripped the desk, her knuckles turning a sheer white, so that she could get some sort of stability. Ashley thanked the world when the bell rang. Hopefully now Ashley could go to lunch, hang out with Val and Erica, and forget about these weird occurrences. That's just what they were, weird occurrences. Ashley got her lunch, sat down at the blue circular lunch table, and greeted her friends with a smile. The events that happened last period had already slipped away from her. Ashley picked up a spoonful of corn as she listened to Erica and Val discuss their history project. She didn't have anything to add, so she shoveled the corn into her mouth without another thought. Ashley bit down, but her teeth instead crunched against something solid. Ashley paused, her eyebrows drawing in together in confusion, then held the corn on her tongue as she could grab a napkin off her tray. She brought it to her mouth and spit the corn into it. Rotting yellow teeth were sprawled all over the napkin with strains of black bacteria running through them. They were decaying, with cracks splitting them apart where she had bit down. Her lip curled at the wafting smell of rotting eggs. Ashley dropped the napkin immediately, spilling the teeth all over the table. She gagged, then covered her mouth with her hand. "Ashley!" Val shouted, grabbing her arm. "What are you doing?" Ashley's heartbeat was a ticking time bomb. It was only a few moments before it would explode. Her eyes wide, she glanced at Val before looking back to the table. The supposed teeth she had just seen a second ago were now pieces of regular corn all over the table. Ashley faltered as her hand fell from her mouth onto her lap. She kept blinking because she thought the teeth might come back at any moment. She stumbled over her words. I don't know. "Are you okay? You might be burning up. Why don't you go to the nurse?" Val proposed as she pulled her hand away from Ashley's forehead. Ashley stood up and grabbed her things. "Yeah, okay, bye." She wanted to be as far away as possible. What the heck? "I'm losing my mind. That's it. I'm going insane." Her mind was fizzing out. She could only stare straight ahead with a hollow gaze because she kept seeing the flashes of her teacher or the teeth. The nurse sent her home without a fight. Ashley stepped outside, hoping to be comforted by the nature around her, but she was met with the complete opposite. She dropped her book bag. The houses that normally lined the street were burnt down. Smoke was slinking its way into the sky as blue became poisoned with gray. Black storm clouds covered the sun. Soot and ash clogged the air, and Ashley couldn't breathe in. Ashley's body shook with the ferocity of her cough. She grabbed at her throat, wheezing whenever she tried to breathe in. The apple tree next to the school was black, with maggots crawling their way in and out of the mushy bark. What happened? What's going on? On the verge of tears, Ashley blinked the smoke away from her eyes, and everything was normal again. The sun was shining, the birds singing, the houses were standing. Life was the same. "It's just a fever, that's all. It's just a fever." Ashley bent down, snatched her book bag from the ground, and kept her eyes downcast for the rest of the journey home. Ashley did not want to see anything except for the gray concrete sidewalk. When Ashley entered the comfort of her own home, a safe haven for her, she couldn't hold it in any longer. The bag slipped off of Ashley's shoulders as hot tears began to run down her face. Sobs racked her body. She felt a wail building up in the back of her throat just so she could release the turmoil in her brain. Ashley didn't know what to do. She could try to call her parents, ask them to schedule a doctor's appointment, but what would that do? Ashley didn't feel sick. It didn't feel like she had a fever. Numbly, Ashley walked over to the couch and flopped down. Her sobs had gone away, but tears were still streaming down her face. Why me? Why now? "I keep seeing things." Ashley spoke out loud to herself as she sniffled. "Maybe if I say it out loud, it'll make sense. I saw my teacher sick, the corn I ate at lunch for teeth, and I went outside and everything was burned. Maybe I should go to the doctor, or a therapist, or both." Ashley smiled to herself. Relief washed over her, and she could feel herself calm down the smallest fraction. "We have the best health care in the world, all thanks to the..." Ashley felt her skin crawling again at just the mere thought of the Odyssey program. The hair on the back of her neck stood up. Ashley scanned the entire room. Somebody was watching. "No, I can't go to the doctor. I can't, because there is something seriously wrong." Ashley ran up the steps, stepped into her room, and closed the door. Hastily, she grabbed her personal laptop and sat down with it at her bed. Flipping it open, she began her research. Most of it She already knew. But it was important. She had to look at everything and anything all again. The Odyssey program, first released in 2020, right after the virus. It was widely accepted by many since the CDC recommended it as the only way to cure the virus. Some didn't believe the government. They believed it was all a big ploy for something else. That's what she needed to look for. Ashley clicked her way through website after website. She couldn't find anything that spoke ill of the program. Everything was about how it was amazing, how it helped, and how society is better off. Frustrated with no results, she was about to slam her laptop shut when Ashley's screen flashed multicolors before finally illuminating white. Really? My laptop breaks of all of the things that have been happening today? Ashley tapped the screen, forcing a message to appear on it in big black letters. Are you awake? Ashley narrowed her eyes. What is going on? Slowly, she began to type back. Awake? The screen went blank before the next message popped up. Careful, watching, reset. Ashley retracted her hands away from the keyboard. Reset. That word made her entire body feel numb. Her blood ran cold as she swallowed. Ashley knew she did not want to be reset. She shut down her computer. It didn't feel safe anymore. Ashley paused at the bottom of her stairs. The fridge was a different color. The couch was smaller. The room was painted a different color. Am I hallucinating? Ashley swallowed down her fear before she looked to the front door. It looked the same, except the light on the outline of the door was radiating a brighter white light. It was calling out to her, whispering her name, enticing her toward it. She knew she needed to walk through that door. Once Ashley stood right in front of it, she hesitated. Without another beat, Ashley ripped open the door and ran outside, stopping at the end of her driveway. It looked normal, the houses, the nature, everything, but the people were gone. Ashley was alone. Everything made sense as different memories from the past flooded her system. She had conquered the simulation. I'm not going crazy. I'm awake. Ashley had been through this before. How many times? She had no idea. Hopefully this time she would stay awake, but she had to move quickly. Ashley bolted down the street. She checked her watch as she ran, which only motivated her to move faster. She got to the library and checked her watch again. She had exactly 5 minutes before her vitals would rise and they would come to reset her. 5 minutes. That's one more minute than she had last time. Ashley whipped open the library doors and ran to one computer. Her fingers flashed over the keys and the screen went white, just like what happened to our laptop earlier. Ashley typed on the keys, find the control room. Ashley then shut off the computer screen before running towards the back section of the library, where a light brown, solid wooden door taunted her every time she woke. This was the control room. If she can just break in, she can get out. Ashley began kicking the door, slamming it with her feet, but it didn't budge. Of course, why would that work? She glanced to the side, saw the fire axe encased in glass, and rushed to it. Ashley broke the glass with her elbow, whipped the axe out, and ran back to the door. She grunted as she slammed the axe against the door. A shockwave rippled through the library as the sound of a whip cracking followed. The whole building shook. Books fell off shelves. The computers crashed into the floor. Ashley had to take a step back. I'm right. 2 minutes. Ashley prepared for another blow, digging the axe into the door again. There was another sound wave that ripped through the library, but Ashley ignored it. She was so close. Ashley brought the blade down onto the doorknob, making the metal clatter to the floor. She lifted the axe again, hitting it one last time. The door caved in, creating a hole, but not big enough for her to fit through. She checked her watch. 1 minute. Ashley dropped the axe and kicked the door again and again. She couldn't feel any pain as she fell into manic laughter. She was so close. Ashley prepped her shoulder and rammed it into the door. As she tumbled into the room, the excitement she had just felt crumbled to shambles around her. Her eyes went wide, and she could feel herself paling as her eyes scanned the entirety of the room. No, I had time. I swear, I still had time. Ashley checked her watch, which displayed 2 double red zeros. Ashley felt them burn a hole into her brain. Emptiness. It's all Ashley could feel. It's all she could see. White floor, white wall, and white ceiling. No door, no way out. She slowly rose to her feet. Ashley glanced down and saw the white scrubs that clung to her body. No, Ashley whispered as she stumbled over and fell against a white wall. No, a broken scream tore through Ashley. Blind with rage, she punched the wall, and once she started, she couldn't stop. She struck the wall continuously, but it did nothing. Focus, Ashley. Focus. You can still get out of here. Ashley closed her eyes and began repeating a mantra in her head. She could still wake up from this simulation. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Ashley forced her eyes open. The white room was swapped for a chair. Her wrists were tied down. Her feet, chest, and legs were also tied with a bunch of wires attached to her forehead. She could see the swath of computers surrounding her. As she glanced out of her peripherals, there were millions of people lined up next to her like cattle in a slaughterhouse, but their eyes were closed. It was at that time that Ashley noticed the two scientists next to her. She tried to speak to them, to scream, to beg for them to not reset her, but she couldn't. Her mouth wouldn't open. Ashley went to move her hands, but they were tightly tied. She was at their mercy, so her strongest asset was her mind. She wasn't going to go down without a fight. What are you waiting for? One scientist yelled at his partner. He was standing right at Ashley's side, holding the bed frame and keeping a close eye on Ashley. Reset her. Help me, help me, help me. Wait, you. Yes, you. You can help me. Are you almost done? The scientist by Ashley questioned. Panic infected his voice as his gaze went from Ashley back to the other scientist. She's trying to communicate with the others around her. Almost there, the other scientist answered as he typed furiously on the laptop. The scientist beside Ashley leaned over and locked stares with her. Ashley, I know you can hear me. Stop fighting. This program is the best. You know that. You have to help me, please. Please, you can do it. Just open your eyes before it's too late. You have to wake up. Do fleas think? Val wondered. At her lunch seat, they only lived 2 to 3 months. Do you know what's going on? Erica asked as she turned her head to look at Ashley. Ashley blinked. Her head was throbbing, but she didn't know where from. Turning to them, she chuckled and shook her head. Ashley had zoned out during the conversation, but by seeing them both smile and laugh, she couldn't help but to smile herself. Heaven. That's what this place is.
Thank you, Jamie. I'm struck by the fact that even though Juliana's and Jamie's stories had very different plots, a lot of the concerns are still the same. There are concerns about a world in crisis, concerns with having control versus not having control, and concerns with the individual's place in the community. So interesting, we're hitting a lot of common threads here. So thank you for reading that. I enjoyed hearing that. We're going to turn now to our first place winner, Lauren Pierce. I see that Lauren has checked into the meeting, so let me see if I can bring her up. And while we are doing that, I will tell you a little bit about Lauren. Our first place winner is 15 years old, so that's pretty impressive. She is a resident of Churchville and a sophomore at Council Rock High School South. She was awarded first place for her story, Dear V. The final judge, Dr. DeCarmo, pointed to her story as being, quote, a psychologically complex crime story with a deftly delivered surprise ending that turns rereading into a real pleasure. Its prose is often sophisticated and stylish and bespeaks a delightfully sinister sense of humor. Best of all is the story's understated but persistent commentary on social class as a divisive force in American life. Lauren, are you with us to read your story?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm so late. It was technical difficulties, but we got in.
That's perfectly fine. Do you want to be seen, or are you more comfortable with your video off?
Either way.
If you would like to be seen, you can click on the little camera at the bottom of the toolbar on the bottom left-hand corner. Or if you'd rather stay incognito, you can do that. That's okay.
All right, I'll just do voice.
Okay, I'm going to mute myself so that the stage will be yours, okay?
All right,
Okay.
here we go. I never wanted to attend my best friend's funeral. Nobody does, and I think that's why almost every person here has delivered their condolences to me personally. Since first grade, it's always been Sabrina and Vivian, in class, at work, out to dinner, at practice, anything. But today it's just Sabrina. Just Sabrina sitting in the front row of the pews, staring at the enormous coffin just feet in front of me. I glance back at the paper in my hands, the first two words seeming all too neat for a grieving friend. Dear V, I don't want to read any further because I'm worried that it isn't said correctly. I've always been better with words than Vivian, but this letter in my hands will never be enough to explain how I feel. The organ seems too sinister. I mean, death is sinister, like that movie Vivian and I saw in theaters a few years back. Neither of us could sleep that night because we were so scared of the villain, so we watched Barbie as the Island Princess and gossiped about girls from our class. We pulled an all-nighter that night, and it was one of the best nights of my life. That, of course, is in the past. Hey, you okay? Ryan asks comfortingly, scooting just a little closer to me. He gives my hand a squeeze. I must admit, he's looking rather dapper today. Though his button-down is wrinkled and the sleeves are rolled up to his elbow to hide stains, he looks more sophisticated than he has before. He wore the same outfit to prom a month ago, and Vivian laughed at him for it. She always said that I shouldn't date him, that I could do better than white trash like Ryan Weaver. He's not like that, really. Vivian just liked to call anybody who lived in the local townhouse region white trash, like a little kid that just learned a phrase. But Ryan is a total sweetheart. It's not our fault not everyone's as rich as Vivian Ramirez. Their place is like a castle next to mine, and both my parents are lawyers. Struggling lawyers, but lawyers nonetheless. Yeah, you, I say. My voice is shaky, which is exactly how I expected it. My mother lets out a weep from my other side, but I can't look at her because it'll only make this even worse for me. I'm all right. Do you want to get something to eat, Ken's, afterward? I shake my head, glancing down at the Dear V on the paper again. Ken's is the diner where Vivian and I work. It's called Dooley Diner, but it's a small town, so everybody knows the owner, Kenneth Simmons, and we just call it Ken's. Vivian and I applied there last year, and we've taken loads of shifts since. It feels like yesterday, though it was really just last week. Vivian and I were locking up for the night, and she told me I ought to lose weight before I turned into my mother. Vivian wasn't exactly the coziest to be around. She's always been really, really honest. I couldn't say the same, really. That was the night it happened, and Vivian's life was cut short. Maybe. I could add more, but I'd rather just leave my answer at that. Unless you want to go back to my place and watch Say Anything. My sister gave me her VHS copy of it because she finally made enough to get her own DVD copy, and I bought your favorite type of popcorn too. I give him a feeble smile because sometimes I feel like I don't deserve him. He's so genuine and sweet. Maybe it's teen angst. Maybe it's more. At this point, I don't know. Myself is an odd phrase. Vivian was always telling me to stand a little straighter and stop seeing myself as my mother's daughter, but that isn't life. I don't think she'd ever say it, but I count as the same white trash she thinks Ryan is. She just wouldn't say it because we were friends, and she decided it was her job to help me become more like her than myself. Oh, Bree, come here. Mrs. Ramirez steps in front of me, and I stand up with shaky knees as she wraps her arms around me. Will she judge me for not crying right now? I feel like she will. Mrs. Ramirez has the look of a rich woman. I couldn't tell you what it's like to have money, but the moment she walks in a room, you just know she's loaded. Not just because the way her hair is perfected or the way she's dressed. It's because of the way she carries herself, her posture as she floats into the room gracefully, even though she's attending her own daughter's funeral. When I was little, I used to want to be her, because she walks around in stilettos every day and could pass a lie detector test with flying colors, even if she was as guilty as Belva Gaitner. I wanted to be her, the same way Bonnie Parker wanted to be Clara Bow. I grew up after that, though, and I realized that won't ever be me. I grew more scared of becoming like my mother than anything. I will never be as swift and graceful as Evita Ramirez. Hi, Mrs. Ramirez, I say, but my voice is as dull as I imagined it would be. Her expression is so readable, so clear. She's distraught about losing Vivian, and she's looking to me, of all people, to help her out. I get it, in a way, but me? Me? It's so good to see you, Bree. How are you doing? Have you been following the curfew well? Have you seen Noelle? I scan the open area, glancing at each face, looking to identify Vivian's boyfriend. Or ex, I guess. Is it an ex? When somebody dies and they leave a partner behind, are they broken up? I finally find Noelle with Lucy Chang by the door, and they're chatting close together like they're sharing a secret. I stare for a moment, unsure of whether or not I trust that conversation. I didn't know Noelle even knew Lucy. She's the type to get straight A's and then complain that it isn't high enough while I'm staring at the big red C on my paper. Noelle, on the other hand, is, well, let's just say he isn't quite like Lucy. Noel Ahuja is more the type of guy to enjoy himself on a Saturday night down at the sheriff's place when the sheriff's son throws a bit of a bash and only invites a certain crowd, one which Noel is part of. There's nothing wrong with that kind of personality, really, and there's nothing wrong with Lucy's either. It's just that those two don't live on the same levels, the same planets. Why are they talking to one another? It makes me nervous. It makes me want to bite my nails, which is an old habit I kicked back when Vivian told me it made me look like a loser in 6th grade. I turn my eye away from Lucy and Noel's conversation and turn back to Mrs. Ramirez, putting on my best faltering smile. Her hair is stuck in a stiff bun, the kind my hair would never allow me to even attempt because it's so big. My hat, the one I wear for work at the diner, is one of the only things that can keep my hair stuck in and in place. He's by the door, I finally say, letting out a loud sigh. I hadn't realized I was holding my breath until I let it out. This whole thing feels like something from another life, something somebody else is living. But it's me. I know it is. Thank you so much. I'm going to, oh, hello, Ryan. She looks down to Ryan, who stands up, holding out his hand for her to shake. I love him, but sometimes I feel like he's kind of a dope. It's sweet at times and saves me a trouble. Mrs. Ramirez offers him the same smile she offered me and shakes his hand, even though I'm not really sure that's the proper greeting at a time like this. I look around the vestry once more, almost positive that someone's going to be staring, but they aren't. Everyone's minding their own business, chatting at a low volume, and sharing their stories about Vivian and her lovely self. In a town as small as ours, everybody knew her, and so everyone has something to say about it. Everything that happens here is something you can relate to, something you're a part of somehow. The curfew they put into place is set very early, but even without the curfew, before this all happened, you would already be in danger staying out after sunset. It's just that now a girl is dead and her killer's yet to be found, so you have to get home before the moon takes the sun's place and allows all hell to break loose. How's your mother? Mrs. Ramirez asks Ryan. I notice her earrings are practically glimmering in the light. They're diamonds, like something Evelyn Dick would wear, and somehow I have to wonder if she wore those intentionally, as a bit of a show. Not much has changed. Ryan's expression drops even lower, and so I grab his hand again and hold tight. That was one of those other things Vivian somehow thought made Ryan a lesser person. Maybe I should have defended him earlier. I'm so sorry to hear that, honey. I'm sure it's only a matter of time before she gets better, Mrs. Ramirez says comfortingly, nodding assuringly. I guess we can leave out the fact that Ryan's mother is better at being a parent when she physically can't get out of bed to get near her kids. Ryan and his little sister are better off this way, and we all know it. Well, I ought to go talk to Mrs. Hammond, but you two have a nice day, and Bree, call me if you need anything, really. As Mrs. Ramirez struts away to go back to talk to Mrs. Hammond, I noticed something about what she said. I guess Vivian didn't get her morals from nowhere. Once trash is always trash to them. I just got a free pass because I was nice to Vivian before I knew she was rich, and she was nice to me before she found out which neighborhood I come from. I don't know if we're friends anymore, granted the situation, granted all that's happened. Noel finally heads up towards the front to take his spot at the end of the pew, but I stake my foot out by reflex before he can get past. He doesn't trip. He steps on my foot and then looks up at me with the oddest look in his eye. At least I achieved my goal of getting his attention. Hi, Noel. You've been ignoring all of my texts. I sound lame, but it's the first thing I think to say. He doesn't give me a full response, rather tilts his head up a little as if examining me. It's nerve-wracking. Oh, whoops. But I know that tone in his voice. I've heard it before, and I realize what he's doing. No longer am I nervous, instead relieved that he's only given up. I guess it was only a matter of time before he remembered that if it weren't for Vivian, I wouldn't be at the top of the chain with all of them. I guess it was only a matter of time before he remembered I was townhouse junk, and that not everyone has as much money to toss around as Leona Helmsley. I let him pass by, now aware that Noel is done with me, and I'm done with him. You can't win everything. Not, of course, that Noel was anything more to me than Vivian's boyfriend of the month. I can see her shaking her head at me from wherever she is now, seeing me for everything I am and all of her disappointment. But Vivian has no hold over me anymore, and for what I believe is a good reason. Or not. I don't know. The service begins, and so I watch every second of it, attempting to understand what's going on. But my family was never religious, so I don't know what they're talking about. A woman sings with a vibrato so strong I fear the windows might shatter. My heart seems to be hammering in my chest as the proceedings occur in front of me, all of which are so foreign to me that I may as well be watching The Godfather in another language. I don't know what they're doing or why, but I don't think I want to be a part of it. The lady singing kind of looks like Jane Toppin with shorter hair and wearing a baggy black dress. Her pearls look beyond expensive, the kind that people don't even wear because they like them. They wear things like that to show off the cost, to rub it in the faces of people like me who are from the wrong side of our tiny town. Most of the time, when a 17-year-old girl dies, it's because of some drunk driving incident or something like that. I wish it were that simple. A small town mystery seems like something interesting, something to look into, but just no, not just no. By the time the service is over and while heading out to the parking lot under the flaming hot sun, which rests brightly in a cloudless sky, I've heard enough condolences for a lifetime. I get them in all shapes and sizes. It'll get better with time, dear. I love that one because it's sweet, but it also gives a bit of hope. I've lived life, and I know time makes things easier, but that doesn't mean it won't be haunting me. She's in a better place now. Our town is exactly the kind of place to tell people this as if it means a lot. I guess it does, but it means more that they're putting the effort into trying to comfort me. Let me know if you need anything. My place is always available. Don't keep the doors unlocked anymore. That's the strongest rule at the moment, though when all of this is over, they'll be unlocking their doors once again. Take as much time off from work as you need to. That one was Mr. Simmons. I appreciate him so much. He's a much older man with graying hair in contrast to his dark skin, and he's rather round, like a child would picture Santa. He's always smiling and doing what's best for his customers and his staff, too. Vivian used to make fun of him when he walked away, which was far from okay, but I never really said anything about it. Stick with us for a while, they'll find who did it. Trust the police force in a tiny town. Our force's strength? 11 guys. 11 guys. Whoever did this will go straight to hell, darling. Don't worry, the Lord will make sure of it. But really, I wonder what they would say if they knew that I was the one who took out Vivian Ramirez for good. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you very much. I'm sure everybody who is listening is blown away by the twist ending as I was. There are so many things that I really love about this story. I love the idea of how we are divided by class differences and how much it hurts to feel disenfranchised if you don't feel like you are valued by your community. I love the idea of lies versus truth and the unseen villain. I think there's a lot of interesting things going on there. So that was very, very well done. And actually, two of you, I think, could compete in the contest again next year. One of you is graduating. This is the point at which, in normal times, we would all visit together and chat with your parents and have some really lovely snacks. I'm sorry that we can't do that this year, but I hope you have some wonderful snacks at your house. And I thank you for doing this terrific writing. You all are really bearing witness during difficult times. So I hope that you will keep writing, and I hope that you will keep in touch. And I want to thank you for participating today.